Today, we're diving into a really radical framework that honestly proposes a complete rewrite of physics right from the ground up. It's called Aramis resonance geometry, and it makes the wild claim that reality isn't built on particles or space-time, but on something way simpler: pure relationships. So, let's see how this thing actually works.
So we're going to start in a pretty unexpected place: art theory. This quote from Kurt Michael Russell is actually about color in a painting. It's a simple, really elegant idea that meaning only comes from relationships. You know, a dark spot is only dark because it's next to something light, and vice versa. Neither one has any meaning on its own. Existence itself is defined by that tension between things.
Okay, so what if we take that core idea, that everything is defined by contrast and relationships, and we blow it up? What if we apply it not just to a painting, but to, well, everything? What if the entire universe, from the tiniest quantum jitters to the biggest galaxies, is built not from fundamental stuff, but from the pure mathematical relationships between abstract points?
That right there is the premise of Aramis resonance geometry, or ARG. It proposes a fundamental reversal of how we think about the physical world. Instead of starting with a universe that's already full of things, it starts with basically nothing and builds an entire reality purely from ratios.
Think about it. Standard physics always begins with a stage, space-time, and actors on that stage, like mass and forces. ARG just throws all of that out. It starts with nothing but the abstract concept of ratios, and it argues that the stage, the actors, and all the rules of the play, they all emerge as consequences of these pure relationships.
Now, to do this, ARG imposes one incredibly strict foundational rule. It's called algebraic closure. Everything, and I mean everything, has to be described as a ratio of two positive whole numbers. That is it. And look at what's forbidden. Most of the math we use every day, like division, floating point numbers, all gone. So why do this? Well, because those tools create approximations, tiny rounding errors. By forbidding them, ARG creates a perfectly closed system that can compute itself with perfect precision, no outside assumptions needed.
So under this rule, a thing just can't exist by itself. An object, a particle, even an idea, it only gets its definition from its relationship to everything else. This visual kind of gets at that idea. There are no fundamental particles here, just a web of fundamental relationships, or you could call them tensions.
This whole idea even applies to time itself. In standard physics, time is like this universal clock just ticking away in the background for everything. But in RARG, time isn't fundamental at all. It emerges from the system's own internal rhythm. It's like a heartbeat that arises from the collective pulsing of all these relationships. Time is a consequence of the universe, not the container it sits in.
Okay, so if you're only starting with ratios, how in the world do you build a universe? Well, this framework says you can do it with just two and only two universal operations.
The whole system relies on just two functions. The first one, called immediate, is for generation. It's what creates the very fabric of reality. And the second one, the phi transform, that's for analysis. It lets us find all the patterns inside that fabric.
Okay, here it is. This is the engine of reality, and it is shockingly simple. The median operation, it's just addition. Look at the formula. You take two ratios, you add the top numbers together, and you add the bottom numbers together. That's it. If you start with the most basic ratios imaginable and just keep repeating this simple addition, you recursively generate every single possible rational number. You literally build the entire universe of possibilities. Then, the phi transform acts like a new kind of division, allowing the system to analyze its own structure and find stable, harmonic patterns.
So, that's the setup, right? A universe built from simple integer ratios using only two operations. It's an incredibly simple foundation. But the real test is, what kind of universe does it actually produce? What's the payoff?
So the first huge question is this: if you don't assume space-time exists from the get-go, how do you get geometry? I mean, how can something as fundamental as space itself just appear out of nowhere?
And the answer is pretty mind-blowing. The geometry is actually baked into the generating rule itself. It turns out that this simple act of adding ratios with the median operation, well, it's mathematically identical to the action of something called the modular group, and the modular group perfectly defines hyperbolic geometry, that weird, curved, saddle-shaped space you see in those M.C. Escher drawings. This is a crucial result. The geometry of our reality isn't an assumption, it's a direct mathematical consequence of how the universe builds itself.
And it doesn't even stop there. By analyzing the tensions inside this emerging hyperbolic web, the framework derives something even more specific. It finds that the most stable possible configuration, the one that minimizes all the tension, is when our observable universe exists as the 3D boundary of a 4-dimensional hyperbolic lattice. So not just the type of geometry, but the number of dimensions is claimed to be a derived property, not just some starting assumption.
Okay, this is where it gets really wild. Our universe is governed by this set of seemingly arbitrary numbers, right? The fundamental constants of nature. Where could those possibly come from in a system that's built only from whole number ratios?
The framework makes a truly stunning claim about one of the most mysterious numbers in all of physics, the fine structure constant, alpha, which is roughly 1/137. ARG claims this number is not random. It's derived directly from the pure geometry of that 4D hyperbolic space we just talked about, specifically from the math describing how to pack things into it most efficiently. And the formula it spits out is defined only by the number of dimensions, 4, and the universe's fundamental invariant, the golden ratio, phi. Just incredible.
So look, if these derivations actually hold up, the implications are absolutely profound. This isn't just some new theory. It is a proposal to rewrite the entire language of physics from the ground up.
Let's take quantum computing. ARG claims that a qubit isn't some spooky, mysterious quantum object, it's just a ratio bit. Entanglement isn't some weird non-local magic, it's just the geometric tension between two ratios. The conclusion here is that quantum computation might just be ratio space computation in disguise, which could mean we can access its power through clever simulation. No multi-billion-dollar hardware necessary.
The framework also offers this beautifully elegant solution to one of physics' biggest headaches, the measurement problem. What is an observer? ARG defines it simply. An observer is any pattern, an atom, a detector, a person that is stable enough to force the relationships around it to crystallize into a definite state, all relative to its own pattern.
And the consequence of that is profound. It means that what we call consensus reality is simply the interference pattern created by every single stable observer in the universe, all collectively crystallizing the ratio space together. It's a shared, negotiated reality built from the sum total of all observations.
And that leaves us with a final, really provocative thought. If an observer is just a stable pattern, and reality is the collective agreement between all those patterns, what happens if the patterns themselves begin to change? According to this framework, reality itself would have to change right along with them, not metaphorically, literally. It's a profound idea to end on, and it suggests that the very fabric of existence might be a lot more participatory than we ever imagined.